Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. In my past life, just to marry Andrew, I gave up my opportunity to become the lead dancer of the performing arts troupe and handed it over to his childhood friend, Emily. After our marriage, Andrew took full advantage of his status as the son-in-law of a military official to climb the ranks effortlessly. Even when he told me he couldn't have children due to an old injury, I accepted it all because I loved him. I worried about his widowed mother and his younger siblings, shouldered the burdens of the household, and eventually bent under the weight of life. On the day Andrew retired at 65, I collapsed from years of overwork and was rushed into the emergency room. But he gave the cruel order not to resuscitate me, leaving me to die alone on that cold operating table. Drifting through the sky after death, I saw the television screen showing Andrew tenderly holding hands with Emily, who by now had become a nationally celebrated performing artist. He said, "For the sake of my family's safety, I had to let my wife and children suffer in silence all these years. Now that I've fulfilled my duty to the country and retired honorably, I can finally make it up to them." The camera captured their passionate embrace with their grown-up son and daughter, standing proudly behind them. Only then did I realize my entire life had been a lie. Consumed by grief and rage, I wanted to rush into the screen and confront him. But in the next moment, a burst of electricity shattered my soul. When I opened my eyes again, I was 18, holding the shared telephone line at the army base. On the other end was my father's stern yet worried voice. "The second son of Uncle Johnson has already become a brigade commander at such a young age. Isn't he good enough for you? If you insist on staying with Andrew, then don't call me your father anymore." Now that I had been reborn and remembered everything, I swore I would never again be the fool who gave everything and got nothing in return. Clutching the phone tightly, my eyes welled up with tears. "Dad," I said, "I'll listen to you." After hanging up, my eyes were still warm with tears. The liaison officer beside me didn't seem surprised. "General Smith still disapproves of you and Andrew, huh? Can't blame him. After all, you're his only daughter. No father would want to see his girls suffer like that." In my past life, I thought my father disapproved of Andrew because he was too poor. I even accused my father of becoming a cold elitist official who stood against the people. I had once cried to Andrew, "If I cut ties with my father, would you still marry me?" He had held me tightly in his arms and said, "I love your soul, not the fact that you're a general's daughter." But in this new life, I finally understood. How could a battle-hardened veteran like my father not see through someone's true character? Andrew had long known that my father, despite his harsh words, had a soft heart and would never truly abandon me. They both saw things clearly. The only one who didn't was me. But this time, I won't repeat the same mistake. I wiped away the tears at the corner of my eyes and answered the liaison officer cheerfully. "No, I don't want to talk about it anymore." My father had introduced me to someone, the second son of Commander Johnson, and I agreed to it. The liaison officer widened her eyes. "You mean Jason Johnson, the youngest brigade commander in the whole army?" She looked shocked. "I was wondering what changed your mind. Commander Johnson's son is not only young and accomplished, but also incredibly handsome. He's 10,000 times better than Andrew. Good thing you came to your senses. Honestly, besides his looks, what does Andrew have? A man who spends all day circling around his childhood friend. What's the use?" It was the same in my past life. Everyone in the army knew Andrew only had eyes for Emily. During pair training drills, he'd gently lower her to the ground and even cushion her head with his hand. But when I begged to spar with him, he'd slam me down hard. "If you can't handle even this little pain, how can you call yourself a soldier?" Later, when new uniforms were issued, Andrew stood in line to collect Emily's. He even washed and folded hers neatly before handing it over. "Emily isn't spoiled like you. She suffered since childhood. Her hands are full of frostbite scars. Don't tell me you're jealous of me helping a comrade." Even the hot water in Emily's thermos was prepared by Andrew. Soap coupons, toilet paper, the monthly ration of brown sugar. Emily always got 2 shares. His favoritism was completely undisguised. Still, I chose to believe his lies. "Sophie," he said, "I've sworn in front of Chairman Mao so many times. I swear I'll marry you." Emily and I are just from the same hometown. We're both poor. If we don't help each other, how can we live with ourselves? Can't you stop being so petty like some bourgeois girl? He claimed he had risked his life for me, and I had believed it. What more proof did I need to show that Andrew had indeed saved my life? Once when the performance troupe was sent to the border to entertain the soldiers, we passed by a cliff. A horse carrying luggage behind me was startled and fell off the edge, knocking me down with it. In that critical moment, Andrew grabbed my hand. His wrist was scraped raw against the sharp rocks, but he never loosened his grip. While the others rushed to find a rope, I dangled over a bottomless gorge, my hands ice cold. Blood dripped steadily from Andrew's wrist into my frozen palms. His face had turned pale, yet he forced a smile to encourage me. "Sophie," he said, "this is the moment for us revolutionaries to show our resolve. Overcome all obstacles. Fear no sacrifice. Persist and you will succeed. Don't be afraid, Sophie. I will never let go." My mother had passed away giving birth to me, and my father was always busy with work. In that moment, my love-starved heart clung to Andrew like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline. Decades later, I came across the term suspension bridge effect in a psychology book. But back then, as a 17-year-old girl, I truly believed it was love. I've now spent a lifetime repaying that debt of gratitude. From this moment on, I owe Andrew nothing. Staring at the reflection of my 18-year-old face in the glass window, I vowed that in this life, I would no longer live for Andrew. By noon, I was humming a military tune and walking briskly toward the cafeteria. Just as I entered, I ran straight into Andrew's furious face. "Sophie, why did you bully Emily again? You know she's frail, yet you still took her food coupons." Behind him, Emily clutched his sleeve timidly like a quail. Andrew let it go. "Sophie's father is a high-ranking officer. Don't argue with her because of me." Andrew raised his voice even louder. "Chairman Mao taught us that everyone is equal. Even if you were the chairman's daughter, you still can't bully a comrade. Today, I have to put an end to your arrogance." With that, he poured his steaming noodle soup all over me. It was peak lunch hour. The cafeteria was packed, and in an instant, everyone's eyes fell on me, now soaked and humiliated. Emily rushed over to wipe me down with a handkerchief, the same blue and white one I had given Andrew just last week. "Sophie, I'm sorry. Andrew didn't mean to. Please, I'm begging you. Don't tell General Smith. It's just a few food coupons. I'm a dancer. I need to control my weight anyway. It's probably a good thing Sophie took them. She's helping me lose weight." Every word of hers was a hidden blade. In my previous life, I had desperately tried to defend myself and chase after Andrew, which only convinced everyone that I had indeed bullied a fellow soldier. Even my father was dragged into the mess and wrongly implicated. But this time, I shoved away the handkerchief covering my mouth and spoke clearly. "Emily, you offered me those coupons yourself. Since when did it become me robbing you?" Andrew frowned. "Emily doesn't get much food as it is. She has to send some home to support her family. If you hadn't pressured her, why would she voluntarily give you anything? Sophie, not only do you bully your comrades, now you're lying too. Is this how your revolutionary father raised you?" I shot him a cold glare. "Why do you always drag my father into everything I do? Andrew, you mention him more often than I do in a year. If you want to talk about fathers, talk about your own. He's mine, not yours. Didn't your parents ever teach you not to spout nonsense before knowing the truth?" Then I turned to Emily. "Emily, you tell everyone. Why did you give me the food coupons?" Hearing me call her out, Emily trembled like a dog that had been beaten one too many times, further cementing my image as a bully in front of everyone. But I wasn't going to let her slander me again. I stepped up onto a bench and spoke loudly. "Emily may be too shy to say it, so I will. She stole my dress and shoes. I caught her, and she begged me not to report it. She offered to pay me back monthly with her food coupons. Everyone in our dorm can testify." Right on cue, two of our dorm mates, also present in the cafeteria, stepped forward. "That's true. Emily took Sophie's clothes and promised to use food coupons to repay her. Sophie even refused at first. A week ago, Emily had stolen my dress and shoes to take a photograph. She was caught red-handed by me and two others when she returned. Her face turned crimson, and she burst into tears, covering her face. I've just never seen such beautiful clothes before. I only wanted to take one picture to send home so my mom would know her daughter joined the army, is eating well, dressing well, and she could stop worrying. Andrew rushed over to shield her. It was just a dress and a pair of shoes. Did you really have to push her this far? He looked at me with disgust. You rich girls from the compound always act so entitled. But don't forget, Andrew said. In the face of revolution, everyone is equal. Emily just wanted her mom back home to feel at ease. Sophie, I know you're only making things hard for her, because you lost your mother early, and you're jealous of the love she still has. You want food coupons? Fine, I'll pay her debt for her. But Sophie, aren't you afraid your dead mother would be ashamed of you for acting like this? He knew full well that my mother died giving birth to me. Yet he deliberately stabbed me right where it hurt most. I slapped him hard across the face. Emily shrieked, Sophie, how could you hit a fellow soldier? Andrew covered his cheek, shouting, You assaulted a comrade. If you don't apologize to me and Emily, I'm reporting this and I'm breaking up with you. A spoiled princess like you doesn't deserve to join the ranks of us working people. My dorm mates couldn't bear to stay silent anymore, and finally spoke up for me. That wasn't just any dress or pair of shoes. They were the last keepsakes left behind by Sophie's mother. Everyone in our dorm knew. She never wore them, not once. She only took them out to hold when she was feeling down, saying they still carried her mother's scent. Emily knew that and still stole them. Even altering the size, she trampled the shoes through the mud. They were completely ruined. How could she bring peace to her mom by stealing someone else's mother's memory? Andrew's expression froze. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but then touched his swollen cheek and said nothing. He just stared at me as if waiting for me to soften and apologize. But I stood tall, looked him dead in the eyes, and said coldly, You want to break up? Perfect. I was just about to break up with you too. A man who has a girlfriend but still bends over backwards for another woman doesn't deserve to step foot in my family's house. Listen carefully, Andrew. As of today, we are officially done. I, Sophie Smith, am done with you. Not only did I declare our breakup in front of everyone, I also exposed another truth. You said you'd pay her food debt for her, right? Great. Then let me inform you. Since we've broken up, I will no longer be responsible for your food rations, and you won't see a single cent of my paycheck again. Figure out how you're going to support yourself, Emily, your mother in the countryside, and your younger siblings, because that's no longer my problem. My dad was a high-ranking officer and the old man was frugal to the bone. Even his own rations didn't match mine. But in my past life, I gave everything to Andrew without hesitation because his family was poor and relied on him to survive. I gave him my own rations, which basically meant he lived off me in the military. Yet the first time I visited his home, his mother looked down on me with disdain. Our family may not be rich, but my son is capable. He supports me and his two siblings all on his own. It hurts my heart to see him work so hard. I heard your dad is some big-shot officer. But if you want to marry into our family, you'll have to follow our rules. You need to know how to care for him. That's the kind of wife he deserves. Even after we got married and moved into the military compound, when others praised me for being a good daughter-in-law, his mother would only sneer. That's because my son is amazing. Why else would she chase after him so hard? But not this life. I wouldn't lift a finger to chase after Andrew ever again. I wanted to see how long he could keep playing the great filial son without my support. Calmly, I reached into the breast pocket of his uniform and pulled out the food coupons. It was the beginning of the month, the day we usually mailed ration tickets back home. Everyone around us had heard him offer to pay Emily's debt. If I didn't take them, he'd twist the story and say I looked down on the working class. That kind of mess I had no intention of dealing with. This month's debt is cleared, I said, handing the coupons to the cafeteria staff. Here's extra food for everyone. First come, first served. The room erupted in cheers. Andrew's face turned an ugly shade of gray as he glared at me. You've gone too far, Sophie. Fine. A breakup is a breakup. You said it yourself. No takebacks. Don't come crying later and beg me to get back together. He turned on his heel and walked out, and Emily hurried after him calling, Andrew, Andrew. He deliberately slowed his steps, clearly hoping I'd stop him. But even as he stepped out the cafeteria doors, he never got what he wanted. My plea for him to stay. That afternoon, training resumed as usual. During pair drills, Andrew made a show of holding Emily's hand and standing right next to me. The two of them practiced close combat exercises like it was some ballroom dance. "Emily, careful now. I'm about to trip you," Andrew teased, his voice full of flirtation as he gently wrapped an arm around her waist. He even shot me a glance, smug and unkind. Emily laughed breathlessly. "Andrew, you're tickling me. If you keep this up, someone might get jealous again." In my past life, every time they touched or flirted like this, I would burn with nameless jealousy, so furious I couldn't even focus on training. I was constantly scolded by the squad leader for slacking off. But now their little performance felt like nothing more than a clumsy joke unworthy of my attention. I stayed focused, fully immersed in the training. It wasn't long before their over-the-top behavior drew the squad leader's eye. "Andrew, Emily, are you here to train or put on a show? If you can't focus, then get out of my sight and start running laps." Andrew, eager to save face, suddenly slammed Emily hard to the ground. She wasn't expecting it and cried out, clutching her backside. "Ow, that hurts." Her pitiful yelp was met with laughter from the surrounding soldiers. Then Andrew stood in front of me, smirking. "Sophie, isn't this what you wanted? You just wanted a chance to get up close and personal during training, didn't you? Well, let's do it now. I'll give you exactly what you want." Before I could react, he grabbed me and hurled me off the mat. I landed outside the padding, my head slamming into the ground. My vision blurred with the blow, but before I could recover, another sharp pain shot through me. Andrew had moved in aggressively, locking my leg with his in a grappling maneuver used in real combat, not friendly sparring. He twisted my arm and wrenched my leg with brutal force. "Andrew, stop. Sophie has to dance. What are you trying to do to her?" the squad leader shouted as he ran toward us. But Andrew only sneered, tightening his grip even more. The pain was unbearable. I screamed, convinced he was going to snap my leg. And then all at once, the weight on my body disappeared. With a sharp cry, Andrew was thrown off me. Against the light, I saw a tall, broad-shouldered man striding forward, unbuttoning the cuffs of his sleeves. His voice was cold with a trace of sarcasm. "What kind of man bullies a female soldier? If you want to fight, come train with me." Sparring among officers was common, but Andrew knew he was no match. Still, with the other soldiers cheering him on, he had no choice but to charge forward. Every flashy move he made was effortlessly dodged. Finally, the man hooked Andrew's leg, grabbed his belt, and tossed him straight into a muddy training pit. Cheers erupted around us. Andrew, covered in mud, looked like a complete mess. Even some of the female soldiers couldn't help clapping. The squad leader quickly saluted, reporting to the brigade commander. "The second team of the cultural troop is currently conducting training, awaiting your instructions." The man returned the salute formally. Mud had splattered onto his uniform from the scuffle. Just as he turned to leave, Emily's eyes sparkled. She whipped off her cap and untied the blue handkerchief from her hair, letting it fall loose in the breeze. "Sir, your uniform is dirty," she said sweetly. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, prompting murmurs among the male soldiers. But the man didn't spare her a glance. Instead, he walked straight toward me, reached out, and pulled me to my feet. He gently brushed the dirt from my shoulders. As confused whispers spread, the man gave me a warm smile and a sharp salute. "Brigade Commander Jason Johnson of the 352nd, reporting to Comrade Sophie Smith." I pulled a handkerchief from my pocket and wiped the mud off his shirt. Tilting my head up, I grinned. "Jason, when did you get so tall?" He crouched down on one knee and looked up at me with a teasing smile. "Is this better? You were the one who used to tell me to eat more so I could grow up tall enough to be your sidekick. How am I doing as your sidekick so far?" Jason and I had grown up in the same military compound. Back then, he was a sickly, skinny little boy who never liked to eat. His mother, Auntie Jang, often pitied me for not having a mom and would invite me over to eat with him, saying we could fight over food together. Then when we were 10, he and his father were transferred away. In my past life, my dad had mentioned Jason many times, but I always thought love was supposed to be hard. something I had to fight for and protect at all costs. I didn't truly understand, not until my dad passed away and left me a letter. By then, I had already been married for 15 years. My face was yellowed from years of exhaustion and hardship. Jason had been gone for 14 years and 8 months, forever frozen in his youth. The only letter he ever wrote from the battlefield was addressed to me. That was when I realized while I was busy chasing after someone who didn't love me, someone else had been watching me with unwavering devotion all along. Looking at the very much alive Jason standing before me now, my eyes burned with tears. Our old friends crowded around teasing me. "Sophie, where do you find a brigade commander as your sidekick? Come on, share your secrets. We want one too." Everyone's smiles were warm and genuine. Everyone, that is, except for Emily, who stood to the side, clutching her handkerchief tightly, her face twisted with jealousy. I deliberately raised my voice and tugged Jason's arm. "Who said I needed a sidekick? What I need is a boyfriend." Laughter erupted from the young soldiers around us. Without missing a beat, Jason replied loudly, "Well, I don't need a girlfriend." Everyone froze in surprise. Emily smirked, a hint of sarcasm on her lips. Some people are really overestimating themselves again. But before anyone else could react, Jason looked me straight in the eye and said firmly, "What I need is a wife named Sophie." That sentence made Andrew, who had just crawled out of the mud, slip and fall right back into the pit. He choked on a mouthful of muddy water and sputtered furiously, "Sophie, come help me out." I crossed my arms, replying coolly, "Comrade Andrew, men and women aren't supposed to have unnecessary physical contact. My fiancé is here. It's inappropriate for me to help you. Why don't you ask your kind-hearted hometown comrade Emily, who just tried to hand my fiancé a handkerchief?" Everyone had seen what Emily tried to do earlier. A few soldiers who had long felt indignant on my behalf began to tease her. "Emily, didn't you see your dear Andrew fall in the mud? Got time to wipe Sophie's fiancé's shirt, but no time to help your favorite big brother?" Laughter broke out again. Emily gave me a death glare, then covered her face and ran away crying. Andrew, still reeking and soaked, scrambled out and ran after her. But not before throwing one last jab at me. "Sophie, you've really gone too far this time. Just because you misunderstood my relationship with Comrade Emily, just because you're jealous of her, you've openly encouraged others to isolate a fellow soldier. That's a violation of military conduct. Unless you publicly apologize to me and Emily in front of the entire base, I'll never forgive you." Jason was ready to defend me, but I grabbed his arm and stopped him. No need to stoop to a dog's level. Let him bark. Sure enough, after barking for a few days, Andrew ended up coming to me himself to make peace. I ignored him for over a month. And honestly, it was the happiest month of both my past and present lives combined. No more heartaches over unfair treatment. No more pent-up frustration. No more dragging along Andrew's family who needed constant handouts. After the breakup, I finally had the energy to focus on training. Our troop leader even said, "You've always had natural talent, Sophie. If you'd been this dedicated earlier, I would have promoted you long ago." Even my relationship with my father returned to what it once was. In my past life, Andrew had subtly driven a wedge between us, feeding me propaganda about how the new generation should challenge outdated traditions like arranged marriages and family influence. "We're building a new society, Sophie," he said. "You're a soldier of the people, the future of the nation. That stuff about matching social status, it's just the rotten leftovers of a cannibalistic system." Back then, I was all in on revolutionary ideals. I thought my father had grown old and lost his spirit. But in truth, while Andrew was shouting about independence, it was my father, quietly and without complaint, who made sure I never went hungry. Meanwhile, Andrew kept dragging me down. Before we even got married, when the troupe offered me the lead dancer role, Andrew objected. "The lead dancer gets lifted and held by male partners. You're going to marry me. How could you let another man touch you like that? If word gets back to the village, they'll say I'm wearing a green hat. If you insist on doing the performance, then don't marry me." So I gave up the lead dancer position. But on the day of the performance, Andrew clapped louder than anyone as he watched Emily get hoisted high into the spotlight. That one lost opportunity doomed me to the background ever since. Later, When there was a chance for me to become the next troop leader, Andrew, by then my husband, rejected it for me outright. Her mother-in-law isn't in good health. We're already planning for Sophie to leave the army and return home to care for her. Better to give the opportunity to someone more capable. I recommend Comrade Emily. She's hardworking, dedicated, and a real asset to the troop. He claimed to be lifting the burden of power from me, but all he did was shackle me in the name of love. The day Emily was promoted to troop leader, I left the military and returned to the countryside to care for Andrew's mother and siblings. I heard that at Emily's celebration banquet, she and Andrew danced a beautiful waltz together, arms around each other, drawing elegant circles on the floor. Meanwhile, I was out back sweeping the yard, drawing my own circles in the dirt. Later that year during the New Year's gala, I returned as a military spouse. When everyone coaxed me and Andrew to dance together, he laughed and said, "Sophie's great at sweeping, not dancing. If you want to see real talent, watch troop leader Emily." As all those memories from my past life came rushing back, I was briefly lost in thought and accidentally stepped on Jason's foot. The music snapped me out of it. Jason pulled me closer into his arms and whispered, "Still distracted? Looks like I'm not charming enough as your fiancé." Today was my birthday. Jason had invited a whole group of childhood friends from the old compound to celebrate my birthday. Back when I was with Andrew, even these lifelong friends had drifted away. "I can't stand your friends," Andrew used to say. "They act all high and mighty just because they've got well-connected parents. They're all useless." But tonight, reunited after so long, we laughed and talked about everything: global politics, domestic development, our years of studying, career paths, and combat training. One after another, it was clear these were driven, accomplished young people. "I used to get mad just watching you with that guy, Andrew," one of them said. "Did you know he always bragged outside that he was General Smith's son-in-law? He was mooching off your reputation and still messing around with other women. God knows what kind of spell he put you under." They all hated what I'd been through, but were glad I'd finally come to my senses. "Sophie, here's an early wish for a long and happy life with Jason," one of them said warmly. Then Jason wheeled out a 2-tier cake. "I'm making a selfish wish first," he said, grinning. "I hope I get to celebrate Sophie's birthday every single year for the rest of our lives. May Comrade Sophie live 100 years. He cradled the lighter like it was a loaded weapon, protecting the tiny candle flames from trembling, and held them out for me to blow. But just as I leaned forward, an uninvited guest burst through the door. Andrew stormed in, eyes scanning the room, face pale with rage. "Sophie," he snapped. "Come outside. I need to talk to you." I stopped a few friends from rushing forward to confront him and said coldly, "Whatever you have to say it here." Seeing I wouldn't go with him, he clenched his jaw. "Fine. If you don't want to save face, then I won't give it to you. I'll say it here." With that, he kicked the front door wide open. Behind him stood Emily and a few confused soldiers he had dragged along. Andrew jabbed a finger in my face. "Sophie, I can't believe you've fallen this far just to spite me. Look at this." Men and women all gathered in this room, laughing and drinking in the dark. "You've really let yourself go. Emily was right. You'll do anything to make me jealous. Even stage this whole party with someone else. And this cake is nothing but evidence of your capitalist corruption." With that, he reached out, intending to knock the cake over. My childhood friends weren't ones to pick fights, but they weren't going to be bullied either. They rushed to stop him. "Are you insane?" one of them snapped. "It's Sophie's birthday. We're her friends. Her fiancé bought her a cake. What business is that of yours? Did you pay for it? Were you invited? No. Then what the hell are you doing here? Making a scene." Hearing it was my birthday, Andrew's expression froze. "It's your birthday. Why didn't you tell me?" I let out a cold laugh. "Why should I? What do you have to do with me anymore? Should I tell you so you can bring Emily and smash my face into the cake again?" In our first year together, I had one birthday celebration with Andrew. I brought the cake my dad had someone deliver. I invited only Andrew, but he brought Emily along. "Emily's never seen a birthday cake before," he had said. "It's so big, we can't finish it anyway." When it was time to blow out the candles, Andrew insisted Emily do it. You get to blow them out every year, Sophie. Let her try it once. Why are you always so petty? Emily blew out my candles. Then she cut my cake and gave the first piece to Andrew. And while I wasn't paying attention, she shoved my face into the cake. I had dressed up so carefully, and in 1 second, I was a mess. Andrew burst into laughter. Sophie, he said, I saw this in a foreign movie once. It's just a joke. Don't take it so seriously. As tears streamed down my cheeks, mixing with cream, he muttered. Why are you making Emily feel so guilty? I was just playing around. But today, none of them were going to ruin my life again. The soldiers Andrew brought with him were clearly embarrassed. Wait, didn't you say we were coming here to apologize to Sophie? One of them whispered. Now you show up yelling and making a mess. You can't even remember her birthday, and still have the nerve to bring people here to stir things up. No wonder Sophie dumped you. All my friends, now successful officers, politicians, and professionals, saw right through Andrew's performance and began quietly slipping out. No one wanted to be associated with him. Only Emily remained, clutching her handkerchief and refusing to back down. Sophie, come on. I know you better than anyone. Back when you and Andrew fought, you always cried alone in the dorm, wishing he'd come comfort you. Now he's here, and you're just going to push him away. If you don't take this chance now, you won't get another one, Andrew said, clearly trying to manipulate me back into his orbit. In my past life, I had lived far too long under the influence of his emotional control. A single cold glance from him was enough to make me doubt everything about myself. Now, with his chest puffed up and his confidence soaring, he declared, Sophie, I know all this was just a ploy to make me jealous. You went through all this trouble because deep down you want me to care. The truth is you're just insecure. But if it's security you want, I can give that to you. Marry me, Sophie. But you have to agree to one thing. Drop out of the running for the leadership position in Unit 05. You're not as good as Emily anyway. If it weren't for your dad being a senior officer, do you really think the troop leader would have offered you the spot? He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, even sounding like he was sacrificing himself. But before I could answer, Jason's brows had already furrowed. Trying to steal someone else's fiancé in public, Comrade Andrew, that's a serious violation of military ethics. Andrew looked confused as Jason pulled a document from his pocket. Since everyone's here, I won't bother sending out formal notices. The leadership has approved our marriage application. Sophie and I are getting married on the 8th of next month. If you've got any red envelopes, bring them. Otherwise, just come for the wine. Jason had submitted the application the day after we reunited. After wasting one lifetime, I wasn't going to lose another day on someone who didn't deserve me. Jason, on the other hand, had died at 23 in my past life. The time I had with him now was too precious. I hadn't expected the approval to come so quickly. Even I was caught by surprise. Overwhelmed with joy, I threw my arms around Jason. We can get married. Our childhood friends burst into cheers. Jason practically wore a trench in front of the commissar's door. 8 visits a day. If they hadn't approved it, he'd have flattened the doorstep. Jason led me over to cut the cake. As the knife hit something hard at the bottom, he opened the box hidden beneath it. Inside was a pair of heavy gold wedding rings. He straightened his back and gave me a formal military salute. Comrade Sophie, he said solemnly, any relationship that doesn't aim for marriage is just playing games. I request your permission to marry you. I couldn't hold back my excitement any longer. I launched myself into his arms. Permission granted. As my soft lips landed on his cheek, Jason, who had stood steady in the face of enemy fire, blushed all the way to his neck. But in the next second, he leaned in and gently kissed my lips. Cheers and laughter erupted around us. Only Andrew stood there like a madman. Sophie, what are you doing? I'm still here. How could you kiss another man in front of me? You have no shame. You call yourself a woman of virtue. How could you break up with me if you love me? There's no way you could really love Jason. He's just a walking corpse. The words walking corpse struck me like thunder. Andrew had been reborn too. But I didn't hesitate. I marched over and slapped him hard across the face. If you dare insult my husband one more time, I'll show you what a real shrew looks like. Emily grabbed the dazed Andrew and glared at me. Sophie, you've betrayed love for profit. You're heartless. You're ruining your own reputation. Don't think being the daughter of a commander means you can do whatever you want. If I have to, I'll report this all the way to Beijing. I refuse to believe there's no justice left in this world. I didn't even bother looking at her. Go ahead. While you're at it, you might want to tell the higher-ups about your dear father. You know, the one who used to be a bandit. Has he finished his re-education yet? My words hit like a curse, freezing Emily in place. Her face went ghostly pale before she bolted from the room in panic. In my past life, after I returned to the countryside to take care of Andrew's mother, I overheard some villagers chatting. They said Emily's mother had married into a new family while already pregnant. Her biological father had once been a bandit and was still in prison. If she hadn't erased her true parentage, how could someone like her have been accepted into the army? Back then, I had the chance to expose her, but I chose not to. I believed in not punishing someone for the sins of their parents. I went out of my way to protect her secret. And what did she do? After achieving fame, she published a memoir portraying me and my father as the very people who had persecuted her, painting us as villains in her and Andrew's tragic love story. Now, as Emily fled in disgrace, Andrew refused to give up. Even as he was being dragged out by the others, he kept shouting, "Sophie, you can't marry him. You're my wife. We were supposed to spend decades together. How could you marry someone else, especially Jason, that walking corpse?" This time, before he could finish the sentence, someone, no one knew who, landed a solid kick. Clutching his broken front tooth, Andrew stared helplessly at the slowly closing door. On the other side was the warm light of my home and me, finally happy. His eyes were full of desperation. On the day before my wedding, Andrew knelt in front of my house, threatening to kill himself if I didn't come out to see him. He held a knife across his neck. "Sophie," he shouted, "if you don't come out, I'll die right here in front of your door. I have something important to tell you. Something that concerns both our fates." Fate. I let out a cold laugh. It seemed that this time I had stepped away just in time, right before he could jam himself into the gears of fate again. In my previous life, with my help in my father's name, Andrew's career had been smooth sailing. But without me now, he couldn't even manage to send food coupons home each month. Not long ago, when they didn't have enough to eat, his mother dragged his younger siblings across the mountains and showed up at the military base. She pointed her nose up at the guards. "You dare stop me? Do you know who I am? I'm the mother-in-law of your General Smith. Sophie, you know her, right? That's my daughter-in-law. Try and stop me and you'll be staring down a barrel." In my past life, Andrew's mother had always looked down on me while using my father's name to gain clout. But now, the young guards only frowned and responded formally. "General Smith's in-laws are the Johnsons. Sophie and Jason are engaged. We've already received the notice for their wedding." "Who are you, ma'am? This is a restricted military area. Please leave immediately." But Andrew's mother and those two spoiled kids of hers caused a full-blown scene at the military gate, rolling on the ground and screaming, "The general's daughter cheated on my son. There's no justice left for us poor folks." The disturbance reached Andrew's direct superior, who summoned the whole group to the conference room and called Andrew in to explain himself. "Andrew," his superior said with a frown, "Sophie is about to be married. If your family continues acting like this, even as a soldier, you'll be guilty of interfering with a military marriage." But Andrew's mother still wouldn't give up. "My son is excellent. You think a girl like Sophie would really leave him? He's the most handsome young man in 10 villages." Coincidentally, the wedding photos Jason and I had taken had just arrived at the base. The leader hadn't even had time to hand them to us. Instead, he slapped one on the table. "Look at this, ma'am. Commander Johnson's son, Brigade Commander Jason, is not only better looking than your son, but also became a commander at a young age. And you think your son is better?" He turned to Andrew, clearly irritated. "Your daughter is just sneakier than others, always looking at what's not hers. Sophie was loyal to your daughter while they were dating. And your son, he spent every day chasing after that Emily. Now Sophie's finally getting married and your whole family shows up to cause trouble. Andrew, if you can't get your house in order, turn in your uniform and get out." It was only after Andrew begged and pleaded that his mother reluctantly agreed to leave. But before she went, she grabbed his collar. "You promise me, bring Sophie back no matter what. Her father is a big shot. Without her, how are you ever going to succeed? Look, I came all this way. I can't go home empty-handed. Your brother and sister are still hungry." Backed into a corner, Andrew could only turn to Emily for help. "Can you lend me some food coupons?" he asked. But to Emily, it was like salvation had finally arrived. "Andrew," she cried, clinging to him. "You have to save me this time." Emily was now under investigation. She had defended too many people, and the truth about her real father, once a bandit, had resurfaced. Her background had never been a secret, just something no one had bothered to touch until now. Her military record was frozen, her training suspended, and she was ordered to submit a full statement. If it turned out she had falsified or concealed any information during her enlistment screening, she could be facing prison. Emily wept in Andrew's arms. "Andrew, all I ever wanted was to serve my country. What did I do wrong? Why is Sophie so intent on destroying me? Please just talk to her. One word from her father, and this all goes away. No one would dare pursue it." As she sobbed into Andrew's chest, his mother suddenly charged up and slapped her hard across the face. "Shameless little. It's you. You seduced my son and broke him up with the general's daughter. How dare you show your face here?" Emily and Andrew's mother got into a full-on fight, clawing and shouting at each other. By the time Andrew finally broke free and stumbled to my house, I was already sitting on the porch. He looked at my young face and choked back his bitterness. "Sophie, what if I told you I've already lived this life once? Would you believe me?" There on the bench by my front door, Andrew began recounting our life together. Our marriage, the highs, the memories, but most of what he remembered were the moments of his own promotions. "Do you know what my rank was when I retired?" Andrew said, puffing up his chest. "The same as your father's, a top military officer. That made you a general's wife. What an honor that was." He even had the nerve to fondly recall Emily. Even Emily eventually became a troop leader, and later a nationally celebrated artist. "You're jealous now, but who would have thought she'd become such a big deal, right?" I stared at the smug expression on his face, steeped in shameless pride from his past life, and let out a cold laugh. "And what about me? I joined the military before you did. I had better skills than Emily. Shouldn't my rank have been just as high?" His expression froze. In his mind, he saw only the image of a woman who bent over backward for him, always obedient, always silent. That woman had been called Sophie, then later just Andrew's wife. "You and I were together for decades," he muttered. "You were happy." I asked him, "Did we have kids?" He looked like he was swallowing cotton, but eventually nodded. "Yeah, we had a boy and a girl. It was a good life, a happy one. So Sophie, don't throw that away just because Jason is a what? Some hotshot commander? I'm telling you, he's going to die soon. Do you really want to spend your life as a young widow?" I didn't even let him finish. I stood up and said, "Andrew, maybe don't daydream so much. Dreams are often the opposite of reality. And did you forget? Half a year ago, when we talked about marriage, you told me you were infertile." When he saw me walking away, he panicked and tried to grab my hand to explain himself, but no words came. After a long struggle, all he managed to say was, "Sophie, I wasn't lying to you. Not entirely. Maybe some things didn't go the way I said, but I finally realized something. I think I actually love you." He took a deep breath as if trying to steady himself. "After you died in the last life, I couldn't sleep at night. I kept thinking, if I ever got a second chance, I'd treat you right. Now the heavens have given me that chance. They heard my prayers." He reached out again. "Sophie, I promise. Just let me help Emily settle into her role as troop leader. And after that, I'll marry you properly. We'll have children, real ones, and we'll finally be happy together." I yanked my hand out of his grasp and stepped back. "Andrew, say whatever delusional thing you want, but let me make one thing clear. I'm happy without you." Not far off, Jason was walking toward me. Andrew didn't dare come closer, but he still called out with bitter desperation, "You still love me. I know you do. Why won't you admit it?" I heard from the troop leader that you withdrew from the Unit 05 selection. You did that because you didn't want to upset me, right? Because you were afraid I'd walk away." Then Andrew dropped to one knee. "Is this what you want, to make me beg? Fine, Sophie. I'll marry you right now. Who cares if the wedding is already planned? I don't mind if you change the groom. I didn't get to give you a real wedding in our last life. I'll make it up to you now." Jason had heard enough. He rolled up his sleeves, ready to punch him, but I beat him to it. I landed a solid kick to Andrew's face. "You think you have a place at the wedding Jason and I carefully planned together?" I snapped. "Yes, I withdrew from Unit 05. I also withdrew from the Performing Arts troupe, but none of that had anything to do with you." Jason raised an eyebrow, surprised. I held his hand tightly. "After the wedding tomorrow, next week, Jason and I are heading to the front lines together." Without waiting for a reply, I pulled Jason away without looking back. Behind me, Andrew screamed in terror. "Sophie, you can't go. That's a death sentence." A death sentence. Because in our past life, Jason died in next month's Lausanne campaign. But this time, I wasn't just rewriting my own destiny. I was rewriting Jason's too. I wanted him to fulfill the promise he once made to celebrate my birthday with me year after year. 1 year later, at the ceremony honoring the heroes returning from the front lines, I heard the familiar music of the performance troupe. The classical melody rang joyfully, and under those sweeping notes, my old teammates from the dance troupe danced and sang with radiant energy on stage. The lights on stage shimmered brilliantly. Below, hand in hand with Jason, I stood as a decorated war hero, bathed in the spotlight that now rightfully belonged to us. After fighting on the front lines and surviving near-death battles, we had finally made it. Thanks to the letter Jason had hastily written before sacrificing himself in our past life, I was able to analyze the critical turning point of that decisive battle. And Jason, without the slightest hesitation, had trusted my judgment. Growing up, I often sat with my father during combat strategy meetings. My ability to analyze a battlefield wasn't inferior to Jason's in the least. I had joined the army to be on the front lines. It was only because the higher-ups, feeling sorry for my father, having only one daughter, had pressured him into placing me in the performance troupe. That was the first time I'd stood on the opposite side of my father. Meeting Andrew in that troupe changed the course of my life. So when I told my father after marriage that I wanted to fight on the front lines, though reluctant, he still signed the approval form himself. "You truly are my daughter," he said. "If you win, I'll be waiting at home. If you lose, I'll bring you home myself." Every face on stage was one I knew well. When our eyes met, the other dancers looked at me with nothing but admiration. Only Emily was nowhere to be found. After the performance and before the awards ceremony, my fellow soldiers crowded around me, eager to ask about my experiences on the battlefield. But they were just as quick to gossip about Emily. After she got reported, one said she married a platoon leader in his 40s, divorced a rough guy, who had 3 kids. She only did it to protect herself. It didn't take long for him to make her leave the army and go home to have a baby. Someone else added, "He used to beat his ex so badly, she hanged herself. That's why he could never get promoted, and now he wants Emily to give him a son too." "I saw her on the street last weekend," another chimed in. "She's so overweight she can barely walk, let alone dance. Big belly, kid on her back, one in her hand, haggling with a vegetable vendor." They all laughed and shook their heads. "And his mom's a piece of work, too. Doesn't give Emily a dime. Every penny's accounted for." Their chatter faded into a few sighs. Then someone asked, "Do you still remember Andrew? When you left for the front lines and Emily got married?" He started acting strange, always distracted, always checking for updates from the front. Mumbling to himself, kept counting dates. Then one day, head down, lost in thought, he walked straight into the path of a reversing military truck. It crushed his leg. Everyone looked at one another knowingly. I already knew. I had seen Andrew earlier that day. The injury had been his own fault, but the military still handled it appropriately. He was reassigned to logistics, carrying equipment for the performance troupe, but he couldn't carry much anymore. His right leg had been crushed, and the damage extended to more sensitive areas. I overheard some old veterans whispering, Well, Andrew isn't trying to marry into power anymore. Hard to play son-in-law when that part's gone. Can't compare to a real war hero like Jason. When our eyes met across the room, Andrew froze. Then, as if in a panic, he ducked his head and stumbled, tripping over himself and tumbling down the stairs, landing right at my feet. He didn't say a word, just scrambled away, crawling like a frightened animal. But I knew he didn't leave. During the award ceremony, he stayed in the darkest corner of the hall, watching me walk up on stage to receive first prize as a war hero. Jason stood below, clapping proudly, his own medal gleaming. That night at the celebration banquet, the girls from the performance troupe insisted I drink. Jason stepped in smoothly. Let me drink on her behalf. Sophie's now under full protection. She's pregnant. Andrew, who was helping serve food, dropped an entire tray. Sitting amid the mess on the floor, he suddenly buried his head in his hands and broke down, sobbing. The kitchen supervisor rushed out and had him dragged away. From inside, filled with warmth and laughter, we could still hear his distant cries echoing outside. I regret it. I regret ruining my whole life. But no one paid attention, except maybe the wolves in the mountains. As for me, I looked at the man who loved me with all his heart, who was now gently resting his hand over the slight swell of my belly. My life from here on out would only get happier.